One of the modules I love the most in Darktable is the RGB Curve, and that's because you can control a ton of stuff, from the highlights to the shadows to the contrast to the colors. My name is Stefan, and in this video I'm gonna share with you a few secret tips of the RGB Curve module. And hopefully you don't know them, otherwise this video is gonna be just a waste of time, but I don't think so. Let's get straight into it. And here I am in front of my PC. I tell you, outside we have the first probably winter day in Melbourne. What are the temperature in winter here in Melbourne? Usually between 15 and 20 Celsius degrees, which is 65 to 72, 73 Fahrenheit. I know it's not too cold, but let's get into the photos. And now let's go to the first photo that I did in Mexico in an airport just outside. It's a good photo to work with the RGB curve. Now the module RGB curve is here already activated, and you can work on either the RGB link channels, or you can work independently on the three channels, which are the red, of course, the green and the blue, but we know already that. So let's go to the link channels above. The other thing that you can select is the interpolation method, which you have an option to go through the cubic spline, centripetal spline and monotonic spline. What are the differences? Based on the manuals and a little bit also my experience, the cubic spline is the one that gives you better result from a visual perspective. Although it's very sensitive to the position of the nodes. If they are too close to each other, they may give some unpredictable results. And it works very well when you are up to 4 or 5 nodes. If you go more on that, then probably a better idea is to use the centripetal spline, which tend to smooth a little bit the results. In this way also you tend to have a more faded photo. And then you have a third option, which is a monotonic spline, which is a good trade-off between the two other methods. And the monotonic spline is the one that is used by default, and it's also the one that I usually use. The other thing that you can select is the preserve colors, and you have different possibilities here. You can read all of them in the manual. I mostly use either non or luminescence. And you will see in the examples how I prefer one or the other. The first thing you can do with the RGB curve is to create a nice contrast to your photo. To create a nice contrast, you first put the 3 points for the midtones, the shadows here, and the highlights. What you do to create a nice contrast, you brighten up your highlights obviously, and you dark up your shadow. In this way you create more of a difference between the bright and the dark part of your photo. And that's pretty much it about the contrast. You can control that, increasing and moving these points. You can go even crazy, but not too crazy. Just a quick interruption to say that finally I've organized a tutorial hub for Darktable, where you can find, of course, plenty of tutorials and videos on how to better edit a photo with Darktable. It's all free, I don't ask for your email. I'm gonna put a link down here and in the video description below. And now let's get back to the video. That's pretty much it about the contrast and how to create contrast on the RGB curve. Now let's go back to the straight line, and to do that just double click on the graph. I'm gonna talk later about the independent RGB mode, and that's the more interesting part. But before going into it, I want to give you more tips about the RGB link channel. And I move to the second photo now. If I want to give more of a fade effect to this photo, what I do basically, I take the black and I move them up. In this way the blacks are not anymore there, they are just gray. And the same I can do with the whitish. I can go down a little bit, so I don't have any more in this photo white, I have only gray. And when I try to fade the photo, usually I don't use the preserve colors, and I'll show you here. I go on none, because I noticed that the fading process works much better in this way, and I could even fade more. If you go to 50 and 50 down here, you have basically a gray photo because you don't have any more black and white. The RGB curve is also a good place to improve your silhouette. In fact, if we want to improve the silhouette of these two guys here, you see that you can see still a little bit of a bright trousers here and a little bit of an orange in the t-shirt of this person. What you do, you just take the black here and you move it right. In this way, you create more blacks into your photo. What it was before gray, is gonna be instead black because you clicked your photo. And to give you even more of an idea, if I activate here the clipping, you can see that these are the clip part of my photo where they are absolutely black and absolutely white. Now if I move here my black on the right, you see how I increase the black into my photo, and vice versa. Increasing the white here, I increase the clip part of my photo, and also give some lights obviously to all of the remaining part of this photo. And we move on to the most interesting part of the RGB curve, which helps you to control the colors. And now it's time to move to the RGB Independent Channels, where we can have a lot of fun there. What can you do in this view? Basically, you can increase or decrease some of the colors. So if we go into the R channel, if we increase the R midtone, we increase basically the red pixel into our photo. Now, if you go on the opposite way, you're going to increase the cyan pixel into your photo. Why cyan? Because it's the opposite color in the RGB wheel. And the same if you go into the green, you go on the green side, or you go into the magenta for the same exact reason. Blue or opposite color is yellow. But now let's move back to the link channels, and let's say we want to add some contrast here. Well, that's a little bit too much. We go to the RGB Independent Channels, and we can notice that what we've done into the RGB combined is move to the RGB channel for every single color channel. So for example, if now we want to add a little bit of a cyan into the shadows of this photo, what we do, we just increase this value here. You see how you increase the cyan, but still in the highlights you get that nice reddish. In a similar way, if you want to add some magenta into your highlights here, you go into the green and you decrease here the value of your highlights to introduce magenta. So effective, isn't it? And let's assume we want to add now some orange to the photo, maybe to the sky. How do we work to do that? Because we are working the RGB space. You may not know all of the combination that works in the RGB space, which is absolutely right. But what I can tell you is to use this website here, which is the Canva website. Colors meaning, I'm gonna put the link into the video description, because here you have all of the colors obviously, and also how to create your color in, for example, the RGB space. So for example, if I look for orange, I get the orange here, and it's telling me also in the RGB space I need to put 100% red and 64% green. So I go into my photo now and I go into the highlight. I increase a little bit my highlight and only a tiny bit my green, and you see that I have created that orangish based on what I read in Canva's website. And you can create any color using the same kind of formula. Now you may remember that last week I talked about the presets, how to import, export and create presets, and I use the ones in the RGB curve, and here they are. I left also the link into the video description how to download them, and I built them using the technique that I just showed. For example, I could introduce a little bit of a red sky here, or orange sky, or magenta sky, and in this case you see that in the green channel I took down the magenta color and I added also a little bit of a fade into the photo. I hope I was able to summarize everything about using the independent channels and how to create your colors, either in the midtone, in the highlights or in the shadow. The Canva website is absolutely a great resource for me, and I hope it will be for you too. But now let's move to the last two things about the color pickers and how to use them. And I move to the other photo in Mexico now. So what are the two color pickers here? The first one can be used to pick the value on the graph. So for example, if I want to see what is the value of this shadow inside this graph, I just go here and you see that a line is added here and it's telling me what is the value of the shadow at this point. The other color picker works on the area. So if you want to work more on the area, for example, you say, I want to see this area here. And you see that it's pretty wide, of course, because there is a lot of dark and bright. But let's do the same here. For example, you see that the area is much smaller and a few points are added for you in case you want to work only on this area. It's quite handy if you want to work on a specific part of your photo. If I use the control button when I open the area with the mouse, what is going to happen is that a positive curve is added into my RGB curve, so all of this shadow area is actually brighter now, and I can create a negative curve here if I use the shift button when I open this area. Do I personally use the control and the shift button when I define the area? No, and there are a couple of reasons for that. The first reason is that the creation of these curves is a little bit unpredictable. Sometimes they go a little bit too much with the values, and the second reason is that they don't work every time. Sometimes it gets me crazy because the control button actually doesn't create any curve. But besides that, the RGB module is such an incredible module that you can use when you start editing your photo. And that's pretty much it about this video. I hope you like it, and probably you notice that I have a lot of presets for the RGB curve. I talk about them in the previous week, and you can download all of them if you go to that video, which I'm gonna put somewhere here as well. If you like this video, I highly suggest to subscribe because more will come out soon, and next week I'm gonna talk about landscape photography. And I see you next week.